Eli5. How did they blast off from the moon to get back to Earth? Within the covers, secrets lie. A tome obscure, to the keen eye. The sixth in line, its contents deep. A princely author, knowledge to keep. At C28, a revelation. Unraveling mysteries, no hesitation. Not by birthright, but wisdom's seed. The answer lies, in shadows freed. A hidden persona, masked intent. In shadows cast, his presence sent. A figure dark, with much at stake. Unveil the truth, the answer awake. Tell me whom I talk about and I will give you a clue as to what this is about. Hurry, time does not slouch. The rocket to leave the moon didn't need to be anywhere near as large as the one to leave Earth. The moon launch was just the returning part of the lander up to the Apollo Command and Service Module in lunar orbit, and in lower lunar gravity, while the Earth launch had to launch all the fuel need to leave Earth, reach the moon, land on and return from the moon, and return to Earth, plus the lander, the command module, and all the rocket stages needed to get to orbit, and all that in Earth's higher gravity. The moon's gravity is very weak in comparison to Earth's, there is virtually no atmosphere to slow a vehicle down, and the ascent module was very small light, since it didn't have to contain the descent engine fuel supplies and only needed a very short duration of life support supplies for the two crew. Only about 35,000 pounds total, while the whole Saturn V launch vehicle weighed over 6 million pounds. The same way they did on Earth, using a rocket engine attached to the lander and some fuel to power it up. The moon being much, much smaller than the Earth, and there being no atmosphere that causes aerodynamic drag, means that you need a fraction of the energy required to take off from Earth. In essence, no need for an entire Saturn V to leave the moon and come back to Earth. When they took off from the moon, why is there no flame present? Even in a vacuum there should be one present. You can see the SpaceX Draco engine test performed in a vacuum with a flame still present. Also amazing how there is no lag in communication sometimes when they are communicating back and forth. Should take 2.6 seconds minimum and sometimes it's almost instantaneous. You might be asking why they didn't need a giant rocket like the one that lifted off from Earth. The main reason is that gravity is so much lower on the moon. You need very little power to escape the moon's gravity. Another reason is that they don't have to carry very much. Most of the weight size of the main Saturn V rocket was fuel to send everything to the moon. The Apollo lunar module had an ascent stage which used the Ascent Propulsion System APS, or Lunar Module Ascent Engine LME. It was a hypergolic rocket engine, which means that it used two substances which would spontaneously ignite when mixed. The engine weighed 180 pounds and could produce 3,500 pounds of force for up to 2,000 meters per second of velocity. Someone did the math in 2021 and followed up with orbital computer simulations that suggested it's possible that Apollo 11 LM is still in orbit and may be detectable. You can Google for it to find the articles, and there is a good YouTube video with info in the orbital simulations that show it just might be up there. They blasted back off from the moon. With rockets. See, they made rockets on Earth to get to the moon, but realized that they would want to come back to Earth. So they made the first rockets big enough to carry extra rockets. That way, when they went to the moon, they already had rockets to blast back off to Earth. Don't think many people are aware of how narrow the re-entry corridor back into Earth's atmosphere is. If I remember correctly, it's like between 5 and 7 degrees. Hit too high and you skip off the atmosphere and float away into certain death. Hit too low and you burn up on re-entry. They used a rocket engine. The lunar module blasted off from the moon, rendezvoused with the CSM which was still in orbit around the moon, then they jettisoned the LM and used the rocket engine on the CSM to exit the moon's orbit and return to Earth. The real question is, how did the Apollo spacecraft even get to the moon if the planets and the moon are speeding through space at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour? The spacecraft reached a maximum speed of only 25,000 miles per hour. They launched with a much bigger rocket than needed to escape Earth's gravity. That way they could launch a capsule with enough rocket power to escape the moon's gravity. If that's what you're wondering about, they used rockets to propel themselves away from the moon. These rockets are smaller than the rockets needed to propel themselves away from the Earth. The moon has a lot less gravity than the Earth, so a tiny push is needed to get off the surface and then you can almost fall to Earth from there, much more easily than the other way around. It takes roughly 5x less energy to get off the moon than it does the Earth. I think the absolutely simplest Eli5 answer is, they did it like this: